In 1558, Elizabeth Tudor becomes Queen of England. She is 25, unmarried, and her court is a maze of silken whispers. The seat of power is the palace, Whitehall, Greenwich, Richmond, where orders and glances carry the weight of law. The stakes are vast. The Protestant settlement, Catholic resistance, rivals abroad, and a fragile line of succession. Every promise is political. Every rumor can start a war. In this world, love is never only love. It is a question of empire. The torches are not yet out when the palace wakes. First, the bell at dawn, then the hush of the antechamber. Curtains lift from the Queen's bed. Linen stirs. An attendant warms the Queen's hands with a cup of wine and spiced bread. This is the daily rhythm of Elizabeth's court, ordered, intimate, and watched. Doors open and close with care. The Queen's white fan rests near her psalter. The light moves over its feathers as though it breathes. One by one the figures enter, the ladies with their keys, the counselors with their books, and the master of the horse with his bow, his eyes on the floor. Robert Dudley arrives with the first list of horses for the day's ride. He is the Queen's childhood friend, a courtier of quick wit and quicker grace. His place is near her, but always a step behind. He handles bridles and pageants, tournaments and progress carts. He knows the measure of her stride, the weight of her eye, the quiet she requires before she speaks to the council. He kneels as if it is a habit that does not hurt him. Behind the curtains of silk, a glance, barely a breath long. In this court, a glance can alter years. The Queen watches him directly. She does this to many men, and they do not know the meaning. The Spanish ambassador will later say she sustains the world with promises. But Dudley is different. He has a ring in his pocket, not for the Queen, but as a reminder of a promise to himself. He is a Dudley. His blood has known the block and the scaffold. His father died shamed. His brother died a traitor for a young queen's fleeting reign. He has survived. He moves his hand to the ring when the room feels unsteady. On the wall is a portrait of Henry VIII. It is there to remind everyone what has happened and what can happen. The Queen lives in his shadow and under his law. Her marriage is not a private prayer. It is a weapon or a treaty. If she takes a husband, he will bring his house, his church, his cousins, his claims. The continent watches. Spain, France, the Empire, and a cousin in Scotland see an empty cradle and dream of a throne. The Queen lifts her fan. She does not hide her face. She hides her thought. She asks Dudley if the palfrey with the gray mane is sound. He says yes, scrubbing mud from his glove. The glove is pale kid leather. It will be a small sign later when someone finds a glove misplaced on a gallery bench and wonders why it smells of horses and lavender. For now, the glove does its quiet work. It is a servant of silence. The day turns toward ceremony. The Queen moves to the presence chamber. The ambassadors step forward with their gifts and their coded words. There is a letter from Spain. There is a portrait from a French duke. There are proposals hidden in jokes. All expect the Queen will wed. She answers with grammar as sharp as a blade and soft as velvet. Not yet. Perhaps. Tell your master I value his love. By afternoon, the Queen rides. Dudley is at her side because this is his duty. She laughs at the wind and leans low in the saddle. The court follows at a practiced distance. Servants carry blankets. A clerk delivers a folded paper to Lord Cecil, who reads without changing his face. The Queen and Dudley return to the palace at dusk. They walk past carved stone and the smell of rushes. A page holds a lantern low. The Queen lifts one candle herself and lights another from it. She is careful with flame. She knows one light can end a house. Evening brings music. A lute, a viol, a song that speaks of vows written in dust. The Queen's ladies sit in a crescent. Their gowns are jewels in the low light. The queen watches her court in a mirror that blurs the room. She sees movement as if underwater. Bodies shift like thoughts. Some are faithful. Some are hungry. Some are both. Dudley lowers his head and whispers a matter of stables. The queen nods and lets the whisper sit between them like a held breath. Her private rooms are small after the halls. There the ceiling feels low. Candles burn slower. Her fan is on the table beside a sealed letter. The seal is not broken. It bears the lion, the harp, the Tudor rose, pressed clean into red wax. The hands that set it were steady. The queen is steady now. She takes the letter and slips it into a carved casket. She shuts the lid with a key. Some things must be kept shut, or they become stories that end on the scaffold. Outside, a bell marks compline. Inside, the queen sets down the key. She looks at Dudley's shadow at her door. He is supposed to be there, like any guard. Still, it is a human shadow, and a human shadow can lean. He does not lean. He waits. He speaks. He says he will serve her with all he is. He says this with no ring, no pledge of land, no pressure but his breath's pace. She hears what he means. She also hears the treaty and the church and the law standing behind him. She thinks of the faces of men in council, of pages with clean hands, of people beyond the river who say their prayers in English and Latin and fear change. She lifts her fan. It makes a small wind. She tells him to be loyal. She does not say to whom. And then, a look. This is the hook the world will swallow. It is a look that says everything and nothing. It asks a question. What would you do for me? It is also a warning. Do not make me choose. The palace has long corridors where sound repeats itself like a rumor. A word said at the privy chamber can echo in the cellar. A laugh at supper can be a report in a letter by dawn. The queen understands echoes. She walks through them like mist. The court, however, breathes them in until whispers become weight. Small things happen first. A page is told to deliver a note to the queen's lady, only to find the lady in a corridor that leads to the royal lodgings, where very few should be. The page hesitates at a door. He hears voices. He remembers his place and leaves the note with a guard. The note is later found opened, resealed, and then forgotten. Its message is not recorded. Its seal bears a stamp shaped like a hawk. A carriage goes by a side gate. This is normal. But the driver keeps his head down too long. The horses are restless though the night is still. The guard thinks about mentioning it, but the shift changes. The moment passes. In the morning, a servant says she saw 2 figures walking in the garden after hours. They could be anyone. They could be no one. In the Privy Council, men debate the new prayer book. Outside, someone drops a glove that smells of lavender and horse. At supper one night, the queen dances. The master of the horse is in his place. His eyes are careful, his smile easy. He does not touch her. He does not need to. The room is full. The room is hungry. Words travel. Across the river, a foreign envoy speaks to a clerk. He wants to know who stands close to the queen. The clerk says, "Everyone tries." The envoy says, "One man succeeds." Letters begin to talk. A report goes to Spain that the queen holds the Lord Robert by the hand when she walks in the garden. A note goes to France that the queen might marry him. A private letter from one of the queen's women mentions that the queen is grateful for simple gifts, a flower, a ribbon, but that she smiles longer when the master of the horse brings his news. One letter says nothing, and that is noticed too. Then, a name enters the room that is not in the room. Amy Robsart. She is the wife of Robert Dudley. She is not at court. She lives at a house in the country. She is not well, some say. Others say she is strong. A rumor wakes like a cold wind. The queen cannot marry a married man. So, if Amy is gone... These words are not finished. Good people do not finish them. But the words are thought. A Sunday comes. Bells ring in a rural parish far from Whitehall. A woman walks in a house with old floors and new visitors. There is a noise that can be explained many ways. A body lies not as it should. The room should tell a clear story. It does not. News rides to court. It arrives like thunder. The Queen hears before it is spoken aloud. The master of the horse hears in a courtyard where the wind takes some words and not others. We must be careful. History offers one story and then another. A coroner's jury meets and finds accident. Some write there was a broken neck. Others claim more. There is a clerk's note of a fall down a stair. There is a whisper of a physician, or an old disease. There is a later story of bitter resins. There is also silence. The one person who could tell us is gone. We name her Amy Robsart, a young woman, a daughter, a wife. We respect that a life is not a rumor. At court, people cross themselves in private, and in public they do not cross at all. The Queen sets her jaw. She appears at her window as usual, so no one can say she hid. The master of the horse is now a man whose wife is dead. A space opens where a marriage could step. Into that space rush fear and ambition. If the Queen marries him, half the realm will call it love. The other half will call it treason with perfumes. Dudley is told to keep away from one room and to be present in another. He obeys. When the Queen's woman drops her fan, he picks it up. He does not let his fingers touch the silk. A clerk watching from the gallery writes a line. He held himself as one in grief. The clerk does not add what he thinks. That would be a kind of treason, too. The Privy Council meets. Men who have fought for their heads and souls take off their hats. They tell the Queen she must marry, but not him. She listens without moving. She hears their prayers and their threats. Outside, a child laughs. The sound feels like a knife and a reprieve. The Queen says, "I hear you." Then she says nothing else. That night, a single candle burns in a high window. A guard notes it because he counts candles. Below, a man waits in the shadow of a door where he has waited before. He thinks he hears 2 footsteps, then 1. A key turns in a lock. The Queen's step moves soft as paper. The guard pretends not to hear. Later, years later, he will tell his grandson that he knew history when it walked past him. We must remember, a guard's story is a story, not a record. Morning. A message goes to Spain. It says the Queen is about to marry Lord Robert. Another message goes to Scotland. It says the Queen refuses to marry at all. Both are believed. A third message is sent by hand to the man in question. It is sealed with a small stamp different from the royal seal. Its wax is a darker red. Its edges are rough, as if pressed quickly. A lady brings it wrapped in a handkerchief. The man takes it with the care of someone handling a hope that might burn. There is an audience. The Queen is on her chair. Dudley stands where he must stand. They do not speak of the room with old floors and a Sunday gone wrong. They speak of a horse, a hunt, a fence that needs repair by the Muse. The minister writes a date on a paper. He writes it twice. When the audience is over, the Queen walks away, and her hand lingers over the place where a ring would rest. It is an old habit. It is a thought made flesh. There is no wedding. There is no public break. There is only the continued practice of power. A promise may be enough to maintain order, or it may be a slow wound. Only time will decide. In the autumn of 1562, the Queen's skin burns. She is sick at Richmond. Small red marks, a fever that climbs and refuses to come down. The people outside the walls pray in whispers. The council moves like men in a narrow room filled with smoke. If the Queen dies unwed, who reigns? A cousin in Scotland? A foreign king with a fleet? A civil war? They speak of names and lines, of law and grace, of God's will and the French. The Queen's bedchamber smells of oils, of linen dampened and changed again. The Queen asks for her mirror and then says, "Take it away." She is proud, but she is more than proud. She is thinking of vows she has not made, and of hunger in the eyes of men who would be kings. In her fever, she speaks to her ladies of long rides and child voices she never heard, and boys she would have scolded and kissed on their heads. No one writes this down. It lives in the air. In a room near the chamber, a table is crowded with papers. Cecil keeps steady order. The councillors debate, low and fierce. They must decide if they will name a protector, someone to govern if the Queen dies before Parliament can settle the crown. One name hangs heavy: Robert Dudley. He is close, loyal, and feared. Some say he would protect the throne. Some say he would take it. The rumor is recorded in notes and later in memory. We honor both records. As the fever rises, the Queen sends for Dudley. He stands by the bed and does not touch her. His face is held like a held door. She tells him, in one version of the story, that he should be protector if she dies. In another, she tells the council to consider him. The language is fog. What is clear? The Queen at the edge of death considers entrusting the realm to the man the court calls her favorite. That is not a soft act. That is a steel act, however tender her eyes. A clerk brings a letter with wax still warm. The Queen's signet is pressed into it. It is addressed to a man who is not in the room. Perhaps a foreign envoy, perhaps a cousin, perhaps a name we do not guess. The letter is short, says one witness. Others say it is long. There is a second slip of paper, folded small enough to hide in a sleeve. That one bears no seal. A lady tucks it into a small casket, the same carved box where the Queen keeps her private letters. The key, again, is in the Queen's hand. Outside, the wind changes. In the chapel, a priest kneels and recites words that feel like stone. In the guardroom, men look at each other and imagine what a new reign would mean for their families. A boy cleans a spill from the floor. He thinks only of the stain. Everyone is thinking of survival. In the antechamber, Dudley stands, his glove folded in his fist. Night breaks into morning. The Queen's fever turns. The worst passes. A small sigh goes through the palace. The people say it is God's mercy. The council says it is God, and also the prudence of a steady hand with damp cloths and airs that are moved by opening a window. The Queen opens her eyes and sees the ceiling. She thinks of the letters she sent and did not send. She says aloud that she has lived to see light again. Now the pivot. Not long after, the Queen sends Dudley away, but not in disgrace. Away on a mission that is fog and mirror. She asks him to deal with Mary, Queen of Scots. Here is the knot. The Queen suggests that Mary might marry Robert Dudley. She offers titles and lands if it happens. This is written in letters and spoken in chambers. What is this? A test? A shield? A cruel convenience? Or the only move left on a board that is already burning? Dudley rides out. The court watches. The Queen watches through a window that reflects her face and shows her nothing beyond. A lady says she saw the Queen touch her casket that night. Another lady says she saw nothing. Both may be true. The sealed letter that was not opened stays under lock. The small slip of paper stays concealed. The Queen goes to supper and smiles when Christopher Hatton dances. He is light on his feet, golden and careful. He bows very low. The Queen lives. The realm breathes. The scandal is contained but not erased. The court decides to pretend consent as virtue. The Queen pretends mischief as distance. The master of the horse returns to service after his errand to Scotland produces nothing, and everything. Mary does not marry him. The Queen did not marry him either. The court draws its veil again. Behind it, vows we cannot see. Then the mistake. One afternoon, a page carries a small package from the Queen's rooms to Dudley's. He has carried flowers before, a book, a lapdog once. He is told to hurry. He is seen by a clerk, a thin man who writes everything. The page slips in a corridor and the package opens. Papers slide. A seal touches the floor, leaving a small red wax circle on the rushes. The page scrambles, gathers papers, and runs. The clerk notes the seal's mark, a rose within a rose. Is that the Queen's or a lady's? Later he will hint in a letter that he saw the Queen's private seal that day, where it should not be. Later he will say he wrote the wrong day. The wax mark is swept away. The act ends not with a kiss, not with a blow, but with a letter that might have gone, and might have stayed, witnessed by a boy, a clerk, and a piece of wax on a floor. The consequence is immediate and unclear. That is the danger. That is the cliff. After the fever, everything changes, and nothing does. The Queen rules with more steel. She keeps Robert Dudley near and at a distance, a paradox that becomes the court's heartbeat. New faces arrive. Francis Walsingham with his notes and networks, Christopher Hatton with his dance and devotion, Walter Raleigh with his cloak and maps. Each man carries a dream of England. Each man carries his own heart like a secret instrument that can be tuned to the Queen's pitch, or break in the trying. In council chambers, men argue over coins, church forms, and ships. The Queen's temper is famous and useful. She flees from commitment and hunts it down in the same day. The people love her and worry for her. Parliament petitions, marry. She refuses and jests. "When I choose a husband, I will be a beggar," she says in one version. In another, she tells them to consider her already wed to her realm. Her refusal is not the absence of love. It is the presence of power and a reading of danger. A husband could be a foreigner. A husband could be a civil war. Dudley rises, Earl of Leicester now, and stumbles. Public favor turns and returns again. He is clever and proud. He grasps at a command abroad, fails in the Low Countries, returns smiling, and swears he will do better. He writes letters that sound like vows. He offers gifts that smell of loyalty. The Queen reprimands him and then gives him her hand to kiss. The court does not know what to make of love that looks like war and service that looks like hunger. Christopher Hatton whispers poetry with his eyes, they say. He would dance for her when she needs to not think. She calls him by names of comfort. He is also a counselor, an officer of the crown. He tends law as if it is a plant one must water, or it dies. Walter Raleigh brings the sea into the room and spreads maps on tables like altar cloths. He plants stories of new worlds in the Queen's mind. He is not careful with his own heart. He later marries in secret. We will return to this. Between treaties and masks, the Queen sometimes takes out a small letter and reads it. We know this because a lady writes that the Queen kept certain papers near her bed and touched them when she thought no one was watching. The lady does not name the hand that wrote them. But one letter survives in the record with a note in the Queen's own hand on it, his last letter. We will come to it. The courtship with a French duke arrives like a play. The young Duke of Anjou is called a frog by some behind screens and admired by others for his charm. The Queen enjoys the theater of it. She tries on the future like a gown, and decides it itches. Dudley looks ill. Hatton looks into the middle distance and smiles. Walsingham looks like a winter field. The people of London grumble about French marriages and papal crowns. The Queen lets the wind of their voices decide for her. She stays as she is. Time moves us to a field by a river. Wood cut for defenses. Tents like teeth in the earth. It is the summer of 1588. A fleet comes from Spain, and the rhetoric becomes flesh. Here is an invasion. Here is the test. The Queen rides to Tilbury in armor and silk, and the people weep because they love and fear her. She speaks words preserved by many hands. They vary in syllable but not in soul. I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman. but I have the heart and stomach of a king. Leicester is there, organizing the camp. He has not married the queen, but he has served her to the bone. He rides out ahead, then back, then ahead again. He sends messages that crackle with urgency and respect. The queen gives him command. The enemy sails, is scattered by luck, storm, and English ships made by English hands. Fires burn on the water. Prayers rise from fields. Bells ring until the ropes cut palms. The realm survives. The queen is made of iron and silk. The court breathes again, and then gathers for Thanksgiving. Leicester writes to the queen in early September. The letter is brief, a kiss from a distance, a plea for rest and permission. He signs it as he always does, with a hand she knows. She reads it 3 times and puts it away. A week later, Robert Dudley, Earl of Leicester, is dead. The queen is told. She does not weep where anyone can see. She goes to her room and locks the door. Everyone waits. Later, a note appears in her own hand on Leicester A.S. last letter. His last letter. She keeps it by her bed in a small worn casket. Servants months later remember the box as if it were a person. That is power too, to turn paper into a relic. What happens to a court when the anchor goes? The queen continues. She must. She walks the old corridors, carries the old fan, and lets no one see the hollow that loss has carved. Except once, perhaps, when someone finds her sitting with her head bent, and she does not look up until the candle burns its wick down. A desperate choice remains. With Leicester gone, who will stand closest? Who dares? The question does not stay empty long. He comes bright as a blade and just as proud. Robert Devereux, Earl of Essex, Leicester's stepson. He is all fire, impatience, and bow that is not deep enough. He is young where the queen is no longer young, and that is its own force. He calls her fair in front of the room and mother in private letters, according to some who say they saw. Others deny those words. He is the kind of favorite who mistakes heat for light. For a while there is joy. The queen laughs at his daring. He carries her favor like a banner. He races into fights, then retires expecting praise. He does not understand her weather. He wants yes or no. She gives him maybe, because that is how a realm survives. He thinks her caution is an insult. He is wrong, and it kills him. Walter Raleigh makes his own mistake in these years. He marries Elizabeth Throckmorton, one of the Queen's ladies, in secret. The Queen learns. The law is not a private feeling. It is the Queen's body politic. Raleigh and his wife are sent to the Tower. We say this with respect for the woman, too. Bess Throckmorton is not a rumor. She is a person with fear and will. She will be Raleigh's partner in endurance. The Queen may forgive, but not quickly. The heart that rules a realm cannot allow its own court to make a mockery of it. Essex shines and stumbles. He wins glory at Cottas, yes, but spends lives and coin, and writes as if he led an empire alone. He loses his temper in council and turns his back on the Queen, or some say puts his hand on his sword. Accounts vary. He offends her in a way a subject must not offend. He is told to go to Ireland to put down a rebellion. He goes with banners and poems. He comes back without leave, in dust and anger, and bursts into the Queen's chamber before she is dressed. This is not a private lover's scandal. This is a crime against order. Witnesses gasp and then write. Punishment comes like winter. Essex is put under guard. His house is watched. His friends counsel patience. He cannot be patient. He makes a choice that will be called by some hot virtue, and by others hot treason. He gathers men and tries to seize the court. He calls good Londoners to his cause. He claims he acts to save the Queen from evil counselors. This is a script as old as monarchy. It ends as it always ends. A few cheers, then law. Arrest. A trial where words become weights. He is charged with rebellion. He says he loves the Queen. He says he meant only to rescue her. The judges listen. Outside, people hold their breath, hoping for mercy or example. Inside, the Queen consults papers, prays, speaks with the council. She is not only a woman who once laughed with this man, she is a sovereign who must show that the crown is not a hat, but a body made of law and blood and shared fear. There is a story, told later, of a ring. It is said she gave Essex a ring and told him if he ever needed mercy to send it back to her. It is said that when he was condemned he sent the ring, but it did not go where it should. A lady, some say Lady Nottingham, kept it from the Queen. Only when she lay dying did she hand it to the Queen and confess. The Queen is said to have cried, "God may forgive you, I never can." This is a story from later years. Some call it true. Some call it a play. We present it as a legend that tries to explain why mercy did not come. What is certain? Essex is executed. We do not say how. We do not say where the blade fell or how the crowd sounded. We say that a life ended and a circle of ambitions with it. The Queen does not show her tears. The realm judges her, and then turns to bread and bell and spring. The Queen goes to her chamber and sits a long time with her fan closed like a folded wing. The dynasty survives. It survives by a thread, some say, because a heart can hold only so many fractures. Return to the room where a box sits by the bed. The box is old now, the edges worn smooth. Inside is a letter in a hand the Queen will never see again. His last letter. Near it, perhaps, a ring that never reached her, or perhaps no ring at all, only the story of one. Stories are objects, too, in a court where glances are law. The final image is not a sword. It is a hand empty of a ring. Years later, after 1603, servants inventory the rooms where a queen once breathed. They move carefully. They pause when they find a small casket. It opens with a faint catch. Inside are papers, folded and refolded. One letter, written in September 1588 by Robert Dudley, is kept as if it were a saint's relic. The Queen herself wrote on it. His last letter. This is fact. The letter was cherished. The note in her hand is recorded. A woman once loved a man and carried his words beside her sleep. Another object is a ring. But here, we step into the fog. The Essex ring appears in tales, in plays, in memoirs written years after the events. Did he send a ring? Did a lady withhold it? Was mercy lost because of human error? Some historians call it a moving fable. Others cite family stories that they say are true. A noblewoman's deathbed confession is mentioned. It may be invention. The legend remains because it feels like justice in a world that often lacked it. A mistake that cost a life and broke a heart. There is also the story of Raleigh's marriage. He wed Elizabeth Throckmorton in secret. The Queen feared not only disobedience but a court where private pairings mocked public trust. Raleigh endured the Tower. He returned to favor, then fell, then rose, then fell again. Under the next king, he died far from the Queen's gaze. He is woven into her tapestry, a thread of ambition, loyalty, and a stronger will than wisdom. Bess Throckmorton keeps her own counsel, survives, and stewards his name. We say her name because wives in these stories are often made ghosts. Elizabeth's love was never only love. It was government, made of law, religion, dynastic math, and reputation as sharp as glass. The romance we imagine sits beside grievance and fear. In her presence, men became brighter. Some thought the light was theirs. Service looked like adoration and could not always tell itself from greed. The Queen used glances like treaties and silence like a fortress. She kept a fan to hide and a ring not to wear and a letter to hold in the dark. Decades pass. A portrait cracks along the face where light would fall. A name is erased from a book by a clerk more careful than just. A line in a diary, alleged, keeps a secret alive and kills its truth. A bell at dawn rings in a palace that no longer exists. Dust lies where cedar once warmed the room, and a single image remains. The wax of a seal pressed firm in a time of fever, cool at last, unbroken for years then, long after the candles died, broken open by another hand long after the silence has become our history.